The wind howled that night like a banshee wail, tearing through rural Idaho with a vengeance that made the pines scream and sway. Rain lashed down in sheets, so thick you could barely see across the yard. The air hung heavy, with the scent of wet pine and that electric tang that always comes before a lightning strike. Inside the small, unfinished cabin on Pine Ridge Road, the walls shuddered with every gust, and the blue tarp serving as a roof snapped and billowed, threatening to rip free. Sarah Miller stood by the window, watching the storm, with weary, blue eyes. At 34, she carried the weight of a life that had never offered an easy path. Her blonde hair, pulled back in a simple ponytail, a worn flannel shirt hanging loose over faded jeans. The cabin she was building, board by painstaking board, was barely half finished. No electricity, no running water, just 4 walls, a rough-hewn floor, and a dream she refused to let die. Her son, Jake, 7 years old, slept soundly on a mattress in the corner, bundled in every blanket they owned. Before we go any further, if you believe in the power of kindness, second chances, and sticking up for what's right, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that the best of humanity can be found in the most unexpected places. The knock came at 11:43 p.m. Sarah froze. Who would be out in this storm? Her heart hammered against her ribs as she approached the door. Grabbing the heavy wrench she kept by the entrance, she opened it just a crack. A man, huge, stood on her doorstep, rain cascading off his leather vest. His arms were like oak branches, covered in tattoos that snaked all the way up his neck. His black leather vest displayed the unmistakable red and white patch of the Hells Angels. But something in his eyes stopped Sarah cold. It wasn't rage, it was exhaustion, pain, and blood, trickling from a nasty gash on his forehead. His motorcycle lay on its side, 20 feet away. The front wheel twisted at a sickening angle. The man swayed on his feet, clearly injured, clearly lost, clearly in trouble. Sarah could have slammed the door. No one would have blamed her. A Hell's Angel on her doorstep, in the middle of a raging storm. She was a single mother, with a child sleeping just a few feet away. Every survival instinct screamed at her to bolt the door and pretend she hadn't seen him. But her grandpa, bless his heart, had always taught her something simple. Look for the person, not the label. And right now, all she saw was a man who desperately needed help. "Come inside," she said, just opening the door wider. "You're gonna freeze to death out there." The man stared at her for a long moment, disbelief flickering across his face. His name was Marcus, though she wouldn't learn that until later. He stepped inside, each movement slow, deliberate, like a wounded grizzly bear, trying not to frighten the one person willing to offer aid. Water pooled beneath him on the bare floor. Sarah worked quickly. She cleaned the gash on his forehead with her meager first aid supplies. She gave him dry clothes that had belonged to her late husband. She heated water on the camping stove and made him instant coffee, the only thing she had. Marcus watched her the entire time, his dark eyes following every move. He searched her face for a hidden agenda, for a trick, for some ulterior motive. He found none. Just a woman, with practically nothing, who still chose to give. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Sarah looked at him, then at her son, still sleeping peacefully, despite the commotion. "Because someday," she said quietly, "my son might need help from a stranger. And I hope Someone would do the same for him. Marcus stayed until the storm passed, around 4 in the morning. Before he left, he asked her name, her full name. He memorized her address. The unfinished cabin, the way her son smiled in his sleep. He said 2 words before disappearing into the gray dawn. "Thank you." Sarah didn't expect to see him again. She went back to work the next day, cleaning houses for cash. She came home exhausted, made dinner for Jake, and fell asleep dreaming of the day she might finally finish their cabin. 3 days later, Sarah was outside, trying to nail down the tarp that kept threatening to tear loose. When she heard it, a strange rumble shook the windows. It was a deep, throaty growl, heavy, getting closer. At first she thought it was thunder, another storm rolling in, but the sky was clear. Then she saw them, motorcycles, dozens of them, big Harleys lined Pine Ridge Road, engines idling, chrome gleaming in the sun, 90 motorcycles, leather vests everywhere. The red and white Hells Angels patches blazed like battle flags. Men and women climbed off their bikes, tools in hand, lumber strapped to trailers. Sarah stood frozen, her wrench forgotten in her hand. Her heart pounded so hard, she thought she might faint. This was it. This was how it ended. She thought about Jake inside, doing his homework. She thought about running. And then she saw him, Marcus, walking toward her, with that same steady gaze. "Sarah," he rumbled, his voice calm but serious. "You helped me. When nobody else would, when you had nothing, you gave me everything you could." He gestured to the army of bikers behind him. "Our family doesn't forget that." What happened next took 3 days. 90 Hells Angels descended on the unfinished cabin, like a construction crew sent from above. One man worked on the roof, while another fixed the window frame. 3 women brought groceries, eggs, milk, vegetables, fresh bread, enough food to last a month. Someone fixed the plumbing. Someone else installed electrical wiring. A man planted wildflowers along the path, while another cleared debris. Sarah stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed, tears streaming down her cheeks. She kept trying to help, but they wouldn't let her. "Rest," one of the women told her gently. "You've done enough. Let us do this for you." By the end of the 3rd day, the cabin was finished. Walls painted, roof sealed. Electricity humming through proper wiring, hot water flowing from actual taps, a real bed for Jake with superhero sheets. Someone had thought to bring a kitchen with a working stove. Marcus found Sarah sitting on her new front porch, staring at her finished home like it was a mirage that might disappear. He sat down beside her and handed her an envelope. "I can't pay you for this," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "I can't ever pay you back." Marcus shook his head slowly. "You already did," he said. 3 nights ago in a storm, when you had every reason to close your door." He pushed the envelope gently into her hands. "This is from all of us, for Jake, for his future." Inside the envelope was $7,200, collected from 90 bikers, who understood one thing perfectly: kindness. Real kindness, given when you have nothing left, is the rarest thing in the world. Sarah Miller just broke down, completely sobbing into her hands while Mark sat beside her in silence. There were just no words for it, no way to express what it meant to have people show up when you thought you were all alone. Before he left, Mark turned back one final time. "If you ever need anything," he said. His voice still had that rough edge, but it was so much softer now. "You know who to call. You are family now, Sarah. Our door is always open." And before we end this video, we have one special request for you. Comment below with the words, "Shelter in the storm," to show that you stand with Sarah Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness, given in the darkest of times, can build something that lasts forever. The storm may have brought Mark to her door, but it was Sarah Miller's heart that changed everything. What would you have done? Would you have opened that door in the middle of the night to a stranger covered in tattoos and blood? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and remember that kindness is never wasted. It just takes time to come back around.